Hey, what's going on, everyone? How y'all doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater. And earlier today, we finally got our first look at the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer. This trailer looked amazing, and it was an absolute awesome callback by Jason Reitman. I think this is the movie that people have been waiting for, the ones that they've been waiting to see, the true Ghostbusters 3. And if you watch the trailer, you saw that there were a couple interesting Easter eggs that not only tie back into the first movie and even the second movie, but the video game itself. And that is something that is fascinating because I wanted to take a bit of a dive into where I think it's going and how I think that Jason Reitman is going to be uniting the entire Ghostbusters universe in this movie, including the 2016 film, which I know a lot of you out there do not like that. You do not want that. And I completely understand it, but it's probably going to happen. I'm sorry. Just want to help kind of abate your concerns now. This video clip right here is one that I shot back in July of 2017 at San Diego Comic-Con when Ivan Reitman was appearing on a Ghostbusters IDW comic panel. This is something that I haven't shared until now. This is something that's been sitting on my hard drive until now, and I finally have a reason to pull it out. I want to play for you this entire clip to give you an idea of where he stood at least 2.5 years ago on the 2016 movie and where they wanted to go in the future. And I think you guys are going to find this to be pretty fascinating.
Before I go into that, I really would like to ask, that plan you have for expanding the universes, but also at the same time combining them, what drives that, and do you have a long-term plan for something like that?
Well, it was clear that a lot of people were disappointed that the original Ghostbusters and sort of this world that we worked very hard to set up way back in 1984 didn't seem to be part of this new movie. And I just wanted to make sure that we could bring. Look, I really like the new women in the latest film. I think they were great fun. And I think I thought the film was really quite effective, but there was something of a loss where we didn't pick up the history that we had built up through the two earlier movies. And I thought it was strange, and I thought it was kind of odd that some of the actors from the first film, the people that we've gotten to love so much, Beckman and Spengler and Stantz and Winston, were not themselves in this film, but were actually playing other roles. And I thought if there was a way, and particularly in future films that we're working on, that we could bring them all together, it would be much more satisfying and much more fun to see them. And really be much more a part of what Dan Aykroyd and I and Harold Ramis had thought about doing way back in 1984.
Okay, so he says that he liked the movie, which is fine. He can have the wrong opinion about 2016's Ghostbusters, but he understood that people were disappointed that they didn't find a way to bring it all together, that they didn't merge 1984 Ghostbusters, or at least that particular Ghostbusters universe, which I do believe now is being called Ghostbusters Prime Universe, and the 2016 reboot. Well, IDW and Ivan Reitman worked together to produce this comic right here. And this is Ghostbusters 101. It is I believe, a 5-issue run where there's basically a portal that opens up in 2016 Ghostbusters timeline, and then Holtzman goes back to 1984 timeline to basically learn from the original Ghostbusters how to actually catch ghosts. And this is something that was being talked about at that particular panel, and one that has subsequently come and went. And that was followed up by this comic right here, Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which operates predominantly as a pseudo sequel, or no, well, really a sequel to the 2016 movie, where now the female Ghostbusters have a lot more power, a lot more understanding of everything, and they actually work to catch the ghosts rather than just who knows what they were doing in the original or in their movie, right? And that ties us back to where we find ourselves today with this news trailer. The question then becomes, how will it tie itself into a grander narrative? Well, there's a couple things that popped up. The two big kind of spoiler events in the trailer were these. First, you had this shot right here. If you look here, this is coming out of the trailer. We get to see that McKenna Grace's character is heading towards the Shandor Mining Company mine. And this was called out by a lot of fans who were especially big fans of the video game from 2009 that was just remastered, because Ivo Shandor plays the bad guy. He is the bad guy. This is Ivor right here. This is really one of the only shots I could find of Ivor. He is the guy who brought Gozer to the world in 1984. He is the one who put everything into effect, everything into a plan back in 1984. And in the video game, they fight him effectively in hell when he takes on this character right here, like a destructor called the Architect. And this is how they fight him in the game. And while that's not necessarily 100% needed to know for where we find ourselves in this particular movie, it does give a grander idea as to who he was. And this dude was a crazy SOB. He just bringing up his Ghostbusters wiki page gives you a very interesting look into his life. Now, it says here that he was the primary leader of the Cult of Gozer and the primary antagonist of the Ghostbusters video game. He was, according to Ghostbusters, the designer of 550 Central Park West, which was this building here, the main one from the movie. And so he was the designer of that, using unusual metals such as cold riveted girders with cores of pure selenium, magnesium, tungsten alloys, and gold-plated bolts. Shandor designed the building in a fashion exactly like the telemetry trackers NASA uses to identify dead pulsars in deep space. After his death, he became a traveling ghost being that. After the failure of his god's attempt to take over the material realm, he decides to take action himself. He possesses the mayor of New York, this is in the video game, in a plot to become a god himself. The Ghostbusters end up in a great battle with him, of which he is then defeated and forced back into his realm. And from there, you do get a bit more of the backstory. It is a lot to go through here, but it's fascinating, and I do recommend that you go and check it out for yourself, because when you look at who Ivo Shandor is, he has kind of been like the Emperor Palpatine of this entire saga so far. His feelings or feelers or tentacles or whatever, they're everywhere. They're felt everywhere in regards to this franchise. And in the video game, they really fleshed it out. And I mean, like, they really fleshed it out, and they tied it all back to Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2. And it was done in a really interesting way. And looking at some of the elements from Ghostbusters Afterlife, I'm really wondering how much of this is going to ultimately be brought together, because it brings me to this other shot here, which is obviously, well, that's a terror dog. Now, we don't know. Is it Zool, or is it Vince, right? Is it the gatekeeper, or is it the keymaster? We don't know who it is, but we do recognize that particular shot, and we do recognize that particular terror dog. Now, this is where I don't know 100% how it's all going to tie in together with bringing Gozer back. But the reason why I find it to be interesting, especially when connecting it to Evo, is that it appears that looking at the trailer itself, right? The trailer itself shows us here with this mine, but then it also shows us this shot here, very quick, of Spengler's Ghostbusters uniform. We get to see that there is an underground, basically an underground center where Egon has been studying. He's been studying something for a long time before he died. He went to Oklahoma. He left the big city. He tracked something there, and then he died, and he left it to his family. And I think what he was doing is, I think Egon was tracking down Ivo. I think Ivo Shandor is going to be the villain in Ghostbusters Afterlife, hence the name Afterlife, because he died and then he came back. When they defeated Gozer, he's been biding his time as a way to really kind of make his way back. And when they defeated him again, effectively in Ghostbusters 2, I do think that is going to be a big factor in that one, right? And the reason why I say that too is when you come over here and you look at the River of Slime from Ghostbusters 2, the River of Slime was actually pumped into existence. It was put into New York by Ivo himself, and he got it. And this is, again, this is in the game, and this is really weird, and I kind of want to see them actually explore this. But in the game, they take on the Slore. This is basically an interdimensional being that was captured by Ivo, was brought into this world by Ivo, and then kept on his family castle on Shandor Island, and used by his cult. Remember his cult that had the thousands of members, the people that were able to do this, the different sacrifices on top of 550 Central Park West. This is where the slime came from. In fact, the slime in Ghostbusters 2 was from Ivo here, and it just happened to be used by Vigo the Carpathian. That's how he was able to get his powers, because the slime really kind of built those powers up. It had such psychomagnetic energy, or psychokinetic energy, that it amplified the ghost powers. And according to lore, that was actually done predominantly by Ivo's followers, who all died when he died. He made sure they all died with him, and those ghosts were haunting the earth and biding their time to get powerful enough in order to bring back Gozer. Because what happened was Ivo promised all of these people, all of his followers, they were all very affluent, which is how they were able to kind of hide the way that they did. He promised them riches beyond their wildest dreams if they helped him bring about basically the end days. And it's a very, very interesting take on things. And I'm very interested to see what they plan on doing with it in this movie. But again, when you look at this, and again, this is kind of another connection here, right? This is another connection. So in the movie, there is the shot of earthquakes, right? We know that there's earthquakes happening in the city in Oklahoma. It's not near any tectonic plate, nothing like that. So the question then becomes, how exactly did that happen? How does all these earthquakes happen? And then it dawned on me, there's this scene from Ghostbusters where Ray and Winston are talking about Judgment Day. And as a result of that, I think this is, again, what we are effectively looking at here. So,
hey, Ray, do you remember something in the Bible about the last days when the dead would rise from the grave?
I remember Revelation 7:12. And I looked as he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became as black as sackcloth, and the moon became as blood.
And the seas boiled, and the skies fell.
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day.
Every ancient religion has its own myth about the end of the world.
Myth? Ray, has it ever occurred to you that maybe the reason we've been so busy lately is because the dead have been rising from the grave?
Okay, so think about that, right? Here they are discussing the concept of Judgment Day, and Winston posing the very good question. What is it? Why is it because we're so busy with all these ghosts that have been coming up when they weren't ever coming up before, that we are nearing Judgment Day? What if Ivo Shandor and his cult members, who were dead but now they were apparitions gaining more power, what if they came back and they were putting out Judgment Day? This is what was foretold in the Bible, because Gozer himself was worshipped like 6,000 years ago. So when you look at the concept of just Gozer as a whole, it was worshipped so many thousands of years ago, before modern Christianity, before what we would view as Judgment Day in the Bible. And so I'm thinking that in this movie, when they bring up the concept of these earthquakes, it's possible that at that mine, when we know that this is where apparitions, who, by the way, according to the trailer, haven't been seen in 30 years, meaning that since the events of Ghostbusters 2, when they fought back Vigo the Carpathian, when they stopped the River of Slime, that they stopped Ivo and Gozer from coming back once again, or at least Ivo from trying his hand at everything once again. The theory is out there. The theory is crazy, in my opinion, and I don't know. I don't know if it's real. I don't know what's going to be happening, but the way I view it is this. Jason Reitman says that he is the first Ghostbusters fan, and his version of Ghostbusters will hand the movie back to the fans. That's what he said back in February, and this particular comment got him in a lot of trouble with some people, because they were all upset that Ghostbusters 2016 was a steaming pile of trash, because it was. But this is his exact quote. He says here, "This is going to be a love letter to Ghostbusters," said Reitman. "I love this franchise. I grew up watching it. I consider myself the first Ghostbusters fan. I was like 7 years old when that movie came out, and I love it. And I want to make a movie for my fellow Ghostbusters fan." And think about that, right? When he says he wants to make a movie for his fellow Ghostbusters fans, he's referring to people who grew up watching the film. Those people who were like 7 years old when they fell in love with Ghostbusters. Even Ivan Reitman himself has said That there are people who they made this movie as a family comedy, but they made it to be enjoyed at different ages for different reasons. When you're a kid, you're going to enjoy certain things differently. When you're an adult, you're going to get some of the other jokes differently. And this is what Jason Reitman grew up with. If you want my honest opinion, having the kids be the central figure in the film makes sense because he's going back to when he was a kid and he was playing Ghostbusters with his friends, even though he was the son of the man who co-created and directed Ghostbusters. So it just makes a lot of sense that when he's looking at the lore, he's going to want to tie it in. And I don't know if the video game is going to end up actually being what they pull from here, but it's starting to look like a lot of the lore that they're pulling from in this, a lot of what they're saying, especially with Ivo Shandor coming back, or at least being a reason that Egon was in Oklahoma, I think they are going to tie it into the game, but I could be wrong. And I say that because Ivan Reitman himself decanonized the game at that same panel 2 years ago. If you don't believe me, listen to this.
Feel that the game was the third movie?
The what? The game?
From years ago.
No, I never thought the game was. No, the reason the third movie finally didn't get made, because it was greenlit and we were all working towards it, is that really, unfortunately, Harold Ramis got really sick as we were getting it, going into the last aspects of the writing. And having directed the first two, I just felt it would be too hard for me to sort of direct it without Harold. And, Bill Murray, never easy to sort of get involved. He really loved doing it. When he finally had the backpack on, he had the best time. He loved making the films. He was very proud. He is very proud of them. And, I finally sort of convinced him to be part of Paul Feig's movie because, all the other characters were in and he loved the women and really finally decided to do that. But I hope that answers it. I'm not even sure where I'm going.
Okay, so he says there that to him, and he is the guy who's currently running it with Ghost Corps, it's not canon. And I feel like even though this was recorded 2.5 years ago, this was before they announced the remastered version of the game, which came out just last month on the roughly nearly the 10-year anniversary of its original release. They wouldn't have done that unless they were wanting, for one, to capitalize on the Ghostbusters name in order to make the money, which is a good idea by bringing it up to updated graphics, to remastering it, but also because they probably want more people to understand the lore of Ivo Shandor. If he's been a massive player since the first movie in 1984, and he was responsible for the slime in Ghostbusters, 2, at least if you look at the game as being the third movie, then it would make sense that maybe Jason Reitman pulled from the game in order to make it, to make it this. It just seems that there's too many coincidences to not have it actually be part of the same universe. And I think if Jason Reitman is going to hand it back to the fans, that means that the video game is part of it. That the video game is going to be considered the third story because it takes place 2 years after the events of Ghostbusters 2. And I think after that, it's been 30 years since there's been a ghost sighting. So they stopped the end of the world because this same maniacal madman kept trying even from beyond the grave. And after 30 years in waiting, he found another way. And it's up to a new generation of Ghostbusters to stop him. Clearly, though, with the help of the old ones, which is what the fans want. So when I look at a movie like Ghostbusters Afterlife, I think to myself, this is one that there is a lot of love that went into, and just basing it off of the information I have here and I put together, I think I put together a pretty decent theory for how Jason Reitman is going to tie it all together. It's going to make the game canon again, and it's possible that it's because of the multidimensional aspects of it. They're going to tie it in to the 2016 movie. And I know that sucks, and I'm sorry to say it, but I do think it's going to happen. Because remember, at the end of the 2016 movie, they mentioned Zool, but I just would rather have them forget it and never go back to it. But there was money that was made, and if they're not in their own movie and they're teaming up with these guys in the next film or teaming up with whatever the next version is, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But I do look forward to your thoughts and look forward to your opinions if you made it this far. And I know it's a long video, and I appreciate you guys sticking with me on it. Do me a solid, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, hit that bell, type Ghostbusters into the chat so I know. And if you want to see more theory videos like this, let me know as well. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you for watching, and peace out. This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.